Hello. I was wondering if I might trouble you for a cup of strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement.
Hello, and welcome to another episode here at Nerdherder. I am J-Dub.
And I am also here. I am Boop.
You are Boop. And
yes, I was definitely paying attention.
you know what? I lied. I'm not J-Dub. I am what remains after my afternoon nap.
I am what you made me.
I am what you made me, Star Wars Twitter. Speaking of, my phone is still going off.
Good. You deserve it. I get a text in the middle of the day. Like, I'm at work. I'm trying to get
You knew
through
what
it.
was happening.
I knew exactly what was happening. And then just feelings out of nowhere. Thanks, buddy.
Yes,
Great.
I'm watching Empire, and I decide to share my thoughts and feelings
And
with Boop.
You followed it up with Zilla.
I did. I don't remember what I was gonna watch. I was gonna watch something else, and then that popped by, and it was just like, you know what? Why not? I'm feeling nostalgic today.
Yeah. Hank Azaria.
I have confused a small portion of the internet into thinking I am good at Star Wars.
A small portion.
So if you are here now because of that, I'm sorry.
A larger portion of the internet knows that you're excellent at Star Wars.
I guarantee you will be disappointed, but I'm glad you are here for my overly deep and weird thoughts on Star Wars, because that's what we do here primarily. We have those thoughts about a lot of things, actually, though. We've talked Star Wars and everything else pretty much. I mean, we've got a lot more ground we can and will eventually cover.
Someday.
But and similarly, so much Star Wars to still discuss. Generally, we follow the leadings of what's going on in our Star Wars world right now, which is what led us to today's episode, all about Obi Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
Because I don't know if you know, but a little show on Disney Plus did. I know you were busy with your Miss Marvel and all that, but if outside of that you were not living under a rock, you would know that a lovely little show, Obi Wan Kenobi, did release. I have to keep remembering it's not just Kenobi, because for some reason that's how I remember it in my brain.
Obi Wan Kenobi, or Kenobi, as I've been calling it.
Kenobi. Yes, it happened. It was fantastic. Loved it so much. And it did something. You want to talk about some feels? It did some things to me. I felt some things.
Which is odd, because you're half Vulcan.
Apparently. It wasn't the biggest Kenobi fan, and so got to talk about that. But we don't want to condense this just to the show, and so we sought out the nerdiest and funnest and bestest boys to join us and chat about this. First and foremost, we have returning friend of the show, the lovely Michael, with us tonight. Hey, Michael Bottle Wilson McCoy. How are you, sir?
I got my podcast fuel. I'm very excited to be here. Love being on the show. Love both of you lovely folks. And our other guest is here too.
Yes.
We're just glad you found your way back into the podcast back room. We got worried when we discovered the hole you dug in the wall, but you're back.
I get restless. We
need to throw new things into his enclosure, or else he's not going to be enriched.
Exactly. He was jealous of the Boba fan base that has been uprising.
He's sniffing my leg now.
Yeah, we had a bonus guest last episode. If you watched the latter half of that, the lovely Boba has a lot of Star Wars opinions. We just don't allow him to share them because he's just controversial, and he's not quite English. Star Wars theory, but he's controversial.
I got you.
Yeah. And joining the best of boys is another best boy.
Hello there. Or I guess I'm fresh off of rewatching Backstroke of the West for the first time in the minute last night. So I guess I should say everybody is good.
I don't have a point of reference for that. Michael's dabbing. I don't know.
Good old HRC dab from Michael. Very excited to be back. I'm glad I'm not forced to share airtime with that hack fraud Scotty J-Ro. It's not much of an improvement with Michael, but I'll take it.
My gosh, the beef between these boys
Michael is
is
the
real.
fifth Beatle of the Bombad cast.
All right,
The
all
fifth
right.
Beatle.
I'm the third eye. That's the official title.
There you go. That's very on brand for you, Michael. Really quick, top of the show, want to remind everyone that in the description you can find links to check out the awesome Amidala initiative and also the What Choice fundraiser, two awesome places to be throwing your attention and, if you can, your money to support all kinds of awesome things that Star Wars fans and creators are doing to support LGBTQ plus families in Texas, as well as those affected by the recent repeal of Roe v. Wade. We want people taken care of, and we want people to have access to healthcare. So if you're about that business, check out the links in the description. We also have links for merch. You can support Nerdherder and the Amidala initiative with our Pride merch if you want. Slap that rainbow sticker on whatever you want. Get it on a shirt. Get it on a mug.
Put it on your dad.
We'll make a donation on your behalf to Amidala initiative for every purchase of that. So
maybe your dad needs a sticker.
Maybe your dad does need a sticker.
Sometimes
maybe you need a dad.
Sticker.
There. Who knows? Maybe we're not all privileged.
Listen, Jarod can be your
with
dad.
fathers. Yes, Jarod is the daddy of this cast tonight, at least. So
we let him in sometimes.
we let him in sometimes. So, like I mentioned, I've kind of led up to this before, just because we haven't talked Kenobi because it would be too easy to make any episode about that prior to this. But I have alluded to the fact that I was very pleased with this new show, mostly because I was a naysayer of the show.
You're a naysayer about a lot of things.
That's true. I do say nay.
You're practically a horse with the amount of times you say nay.
And
that was really funny.
Thank you, Jarod.
It wasn't as funny as your reaction, but I'll allow it. You're incorrigible.
He's a horse.
We need to clip that.
Kenobi, right. Yes, that's the new famous clip. Kenobi, yes. I don't know how the rest of the Boba.
Bless you.
I don't know how the rest of the gang feels.
Boba's trying to give his hot takes about Kenobi.
Apparently.
Boba's about to say something awful about Reva. I just feel it.
We did say he was controversial. Michael, over to you. How do you feel prior to this show and in general about Kenobi?
Prior to the show, I mean, I liked Obi Wan Kenobi. He was never my favorite of the Jedi. I think Qui-Gon has always been number one in my books. Yes. But over the years, I've grown to really appreciate.
I like
this panel. Over the years, I've grown to appreciate Obi-Wan, especially the more material we get. Like I think the novel Master and Apprentice deepened my appreciation for the character more. The little bit we had to see of him in Rebels and Twin Sons, absolutely phenomenal. And then the show added a whole nother layer of depth to Kenobi by giving us sort of the broken Kenobi in that era of his life that I think has really, really made me fall in love with the character. So,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of folks that kind of have him as the poster Jedi child and everything. I will say the times he's been more grounded, some of which you mentioned, were big ones for me, and I think those are becoming some of his outshining moments in general in recent years. It's interesting because before this show, he was such a all right, we're going to pull the Obi-Wan card occasionally, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to overshow it and overdo it. And then here he is getting his whole show. And I think they handled that very well. What about you, Jarod? The Dark Jedi.
I've always loved Obi-Wan. He's always been one of those, top 5, if not top 10 characters. If I were to make a comparison with Obi-Wan, he's very much like, in some ways, like Star Wars' answer to like a Superman, like that incorruptible, like paragon of like, this is how you do it. He is the quintessential Jedi. He evades the pitfalls that so many Jedi fall into. Even the best of them, even your Luke Skywalkers, have moments where they kind of buckle under the fear or the need to do the Jedi thing. Obi-Wan never really succumbs to that for any extended period of time, really. And it makes him incredibly noble, and it makes for why a show like Kenobi can exist, that it is an exploration of somebody who can't and won't break. Like I think that's kind of the whole point with this show, is that, he's not the type of Jedi who this could happen to him and he fall to the dark side and he completely fall apart in that way. He's your hero Jedi. And I think it makes him very special, that he is in so many ways this noble hero in a way that even the Jedi can't quite crack the way he does. So yeah, I've always loved Obi-Wan, and I'm a Vader guy by trade, so you can't. I'm wearing
it's
I'm
very
wearing
much
my Vader
a
button
duality.
down. Yeah, exactly. So like just that relationship unto itself makes him somebody I'm very
yes. Everything is a dyad. Peanut butter and jelly is a dyad.
Yes.
So I do think that's interesting in that he represents so I'm a big one, and it's often said, right, that Luke is a very great example of what the Jedi should be. I think Kenobi is a very standing example of what the Jedi are, and I mean the Jedi, like the order, the institution. Not necessarily peacekeepers, light bearers, all of that. I think what the order and the group is at the time he exists in it, he is the best version of what it can be, right? He's the goodest you can get in a corrupt organization, and I use that term a little loosely just because it's not corrupt in the same sense as the Senate. They tend to fall back on that during the prequels and the Clone Wars. Actually,
it's decaying.
Yeah, it's more that the only corruption really that happened is the stagnation of their morality, more than anything. And so, but like you said, Obi-Wan doesn't step in that. He still gets to be the boy by the book while also still being a good boy. Like in general, I don't think we would say Obi-Wan's done anything horrible or bad.
No, but he overlooked a lot of things, which was the cardinal sin of the Jedi, in my opinion.
For sure.
Yes.
If you were to try to put like Obi-Wan's like here are the things that are like morally questionable about him, like I think his greatest offense is he came out swinging at Maul after he killed Qui-Gon. Like that's the only real time you ever see Obi-Wan even like within spitting distance of the dark side. Is that very like, oh, I'm about to whoop your ass little like bounce he's doing before he gets a shot at Maul. Like, and you can see that come through, and that's like the most aggressive and filled with like any type of real anger we've ever seen Obi-Wan. Other than that, like that's the only time I can really think of there being like a, even almost thought about touching the dark side even a little bit, but even then,
Yeah, the other like only worst thing you can say that Obi-Wan has done is like original trilogy Obi-Wan thinking the only way to deal with Vader is to kill him, not thinking that there's any help for him, which again, that's understandable. It's not evil. It's not a dark side influence on him. It's just something he was wrong about.
Yeah. I mean, well, and especially now after this show, I do, because I was one of those like fun at parties Star Wars fans where it's just like, oh, you like Star Wars? Cool. What's your favorite character? Boba Fett. What about you? Oh, Obi-Wan. Oh, Obi-Wan really wasn't a good guy. That whole from a certain point of view stuff. You got to kill your father. Like I was that guy for a long time.
You were very fun at parties.
And but having this show now, not that there wasn't already enough grounds to come to the conclusion of why he would think that. This show now establishes firmly why he's set in that perspective. Like, you know,
Yeah.
him saying like the truths we cling to depend on our point of view. The truth he clings to is the point of view of a master who was told by his, you know, pseudo dead student, "Hey, no, I'm not your failure. I killed Anakin.
Yeah,
I
I
am
did this.
Vader. I am evil.
I maked
you know,
this."
right? Like, okay,
I
yeah,
mean, hey,
You made this, I made this.
he might as well have told Luke in episode 6, like he literally told me. He literally told me.
Yes.
You know.
Kenobi went there with the ideal of I can fix him. Vader went, I could make him worse.
There's an interesting thought though with that of like, I mean, Vader does essentially tell Luke the same thing in episode 6, and this isn't a Luke cast, but
Could be.
you know, he tells him like it's too late for me, and Luke he's not satisfied with that answer, right? Like, so that there's an interesting relationship there between you know, the master and student and the father and the son, but that's another podcast probably.
I think one of the most important things to have in life is, you know, not just friends who are you're willing to lean on or are wanting to help, is to have someone who's not willing to give up on you. That is exactly what Anakin needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And who better than his son?
Exactly.
So yeah, I love all of that. And I agree with a lot of that perspective, Jarod, of Obi-Wan as this sort of incorruptible best example of Jedi
Superman.
and all of that. But it's very relatable with why that was not one of my favorite characters. With that illustration alone, it explains why I never really got along with Obi-Wan. Like, it was he just wasn't, for me, relatable in those sides, because I could see the problems with the Jedi. I had my feelings about what they could have done better. You know, all of that with the story. So it was like, I can't like Obi-Wan that much because I see him as almost the epitome of the Jedi in the scenario, much like Anakin did. And so making that thread is actually a really good explanation for why for a long time I struggled with this character.
Yeah. Well, you also, I mean, and Obi-Wan's also such a great example. Like, and you said it yourself. It's like, you know, this is the best you can be. Hi, Eli. You see Michael and I on screen together. It's something you never get to see because Michael lost
playing
to
along, getting along. Nobody's beating nobody at trivia.
I'm beating both of you.
Michael certainly isn't beating me these days.
I'm sorry. Who lost via TKO? I mean, do we need to remind people?
I don't know. I've won by TKO twice now.
Oh yeah, against an apathetic loser, your co-host who lost you the first match, and a drunk. I don't give a shit.
For those without context, that's like the most interesting content you could have teased.
Go watch Epic Confrontations. It's
wonderful. And
It
annual reminder that you could be watching this live and interacting with us, like the lovely Eli and Brooks are in the chat.
Yes. But no, like he's the best you can do within a broken system.
Yeah.
And like, even going off of the talking about like the point of view and all of that malarkey, to use the word of another paragon of a broken system, like, go all the way back to what Satine says about Obi-Wan, you know, like the half truth and hyperbole that is the man of Obi Wan Kenobi. Like, there's a little bit of that, like Obi-Wan's like, you know, oh, well, you know, the truth is subjective sometimes when I need to get a point across. And like, it's just, Obi-Wan is so fascinating. And like, he's not the kind of, like, I for a long time was not a Superman guy until I realized that, like, the point is not, I'm not supposed to relate to Superman. I'm supposed to aspire to Superman. He's aspirational. I've always related more to Batman, and like, and just maybe in like an interpersonal relationship kind of way, like Spencer, my best friend, my co-host who lost me the match against Bombadcast. Spooter, Spiny, Spoodle, Sphincter, whatever you want to call him. Like, he and I have always had that, like, we've joked about it, that like we have that Obi-Wan, Anakin, Batman, Superman kind of relationship, where it's like he's always has been this very put together, you know, literally an Eagle Scout kind of goody two shoes guy, and I'm just like foul mouthed, you know, kind of, you know, little bit of anarchy, never hurt the party kind of guy, and that's always been our relationship. And I don't know, like, there's a beauty to, you know, Obi-Wan being just so aspirational. Like, I think that's the word for it. He has that spirit, he has that hope to him. I think it makes him fascinating. And again, like I've never related to Obi-Wan, but I wish I could be more like Obi-Wan.
I think that's the frustrating struggle with those kinds of characters. I think part of the reason people like me are mostly like, screw Obi-Wan. Like, I want more interesting, instantly relatable characters. Is it's because because I'm not as good as Obi-Wan. Good, good from a point of view, but it's like, I'll never be that. So I'm not even going to climb that mountain. I'm going to go over here to this little orphan boy that I relate to too much.
Fair.
And that's why I think Kenobi, the show, really helped, people like us to really get the character more, to see him at a more broken level, to get back to that level, to climb back to the top after being devastated and having his faith shattered.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to reference back to is, like you said, he's more interesting the more you get to know. If you look at the outside features and the most highest qualities of the character, you see everything we've talked about. What I love is what's getting added deeper and deeper and deeper, and they've been doing it since the Clone Wars, which I do appreciate. Before we start diving into the journey of the Kenobes, we kind of got on a deviation there.
I didn't mind. It's good podcasting.
But giving it back to you, your pre-show Kenobi thoughts. Where did the character land for you?
Head empty, mullet. Like, that is my entire, preconceived notion of Kenobi. As with most things I go into, I like to go in completely dumb and blind.
It's a superpower, really.
I know. I do not take it for granted in the slightest.
I want to say real quick, I've oddly, like, I watch Attack of the Clones a lot.
You do.
I watch all of them a lot. I kind of proudly tweeted about it when the Pod Daddy Pete put out their poll. Is like, how often do you watch Star Wars? And it's like yearly, monthly, weekly, daily, or whatever. And I put daily, and I was like so proud of it and everything. And then I was after the fact like, oh my god, what is wrong with me?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
It is pretty darn close to daily, I will say. And Attack of the Clones and obviously the Phantom Menace are high up there.
The mullet.
Yeah, because Attack of the Clones never used to be a Kenobi movie to me. I do like Gumshoe Kenobi,
Really?
but in general, I was mostly like, give me Anakin being angsty boy, give me Tamara Morrison. I want to relive my emo phase and miss my dad all at the same time.
And then you get over that.
And now
Missing
I'm
your
going
dad,
back
not
and
your
I'm
emo
just
phase.
like, this man is gorgeous. This is the peak
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi look. What was I thinking?
More men should have mullets.
Even when he has the CGI beard in a couple scenes.
Exactly. Look, a mullet is a beautiful thing. Like, I grew up in the rural South. You need a mullet
Kenobi
to
rocks
protect
it too.
the back of your neck.
Yeah,
Like,
Kenobi rocks it.
It is essential. We saw a child with a rat tail the other day.
We did.
But back to the point.
The tradition
I was going to
continues.
make a point, and I forgot I remember what it was.
There you go.
So I had a realization while we were talking about Qui-Gon forever ago in our normal life, which we do pretty much daily at this point.
There's so many episodes of this podcast we've
Right?
never recorded. You have no idea.
We should just whip
Relatable.
out a voice memo in general at any time in our day.
Right.
But I had the realization that Qui-Gon was a good man in general. Like, that was his whole outlook. Obi-Wan was a good Jedi. And I think that's the duality of those characters, is you can be really, really good at your job and not make a connection to anyone ever.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back, like I've often said, and this is mostly like my perceptions with certain scenes in The Phantom Menace, where I'm like, this can either be
buddy.
super sarcastic Qui-Gon, or it can be completely genuine, right? So there's a scene where they're arguing about the fate of Anakin and everything, and Qui-Gon's like, the council will decide Anakin's fate. That should be enough for you. And it's just like, if you read that a certain way, he's saying like, look, little good boy, Eagle Scout Jedi. All right, the council's going to decide, and since you like the council so much,
Go for it.
You'll agree with whatever they decide. Okay,
Yeah.
so just let it be.
And I just love that pairing so much. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
Yeah,
like, I love
you're good.
Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon as a unit so much because you have like, hello, Nick.
Hello.
What's up, Daddy?
Milk
He
Daddy
texted me
in the
last
chat.
night, like unprovoked out of nowhere, a picture of him drinking out of his identical Nerd Academy mug.
Aww.
And he was like, do you know why I'm drinking whiskey out of my TNAP mug right now? I said, no, sir. Why? He's like, because I'm awesome and I piss excellence. I
love you, Nick. I love you.
That man so much.
I love you. Everybody go subscribe to Podcast World.
Yes. But no, I love them as a unit because like everybody at that age is like, that's like the rebellious phase, you know, and it makes so much sense for Qui-Gon Jinn. The Jedi Order is very like, hey, I heard what you said. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Exactly.
Because like I listen to the Force, not the Order. His that mentality he has. So like his rebellious student is this friggin' square.
Yeah.
Who's just like so like by the book. Well, you know, Master, the Jedi Code states like, and it's like I'm like, I don't give a shit. Shut up.
Well, and it's funny because that's sort of like what Master and Apprentice added into the lore, which is that Obi-Wan used to be a rule breaker, but by pairing him up with Qui-Gon, the only way he could be rebellious is to become the strictest rule follower.
Yeah.
So that's how.
Well, and that's the other like pseudo sarcastic thing I was going to point out about the Phantom Menace is later on when they have that, oh, you know, Qui-Gon's going to die moment of, you know, like I foresee you'll be a great Jedi. Like, you know, he specifically says, I think you'll be a great Jedi.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, he does say, you know, you're a good apprentice, you're wise, all that, but he
wisdom
points,
only gets you so far, babe.
Yeah, he points specifically, you're going to be a good
Difference
Jedi
between knowledge and wisdom.
You get along with it. You're in, you know, it's like the earlier, like it's like you think the council's always right. So whatever they decide, if they're as right as you think they are, then it will be right. You know, it's like it's an interesting dichotomy for sure. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Again, hitting the nail of just like he's kind of a wet blanket because he's just a really good Jedi. He's not more interesting than that.
Yeah.
Until you get stories like this that take him further and make him deeper and do more with him.
Yeah, and he's seen so many times fallen Jedi, you know. Yes. Paula. He's seen what happens to people who break the rules. You know,
he has reasons to be. He has reasons to be who he is what we find when we journey further with him. And so, I mean, I think obviously a good place to start would be with young Obi-Wan, but I also decided against that. Yeah. So only because I'm gonna do the release order logic only because starting off from a point of, look, I never liked this character. Why? Because I started with the original trilogy, and I mean that from the perspective of I never really dug old Ben. I never really got him from the beginning. It's everything that's happened since the original trilogy that's made him more interesting and retroactively made the original trilogy more interesting.
Yeah.
So I think working from that logic, it makes sense to start with where originally he was a little bit less interesting and work from there. So, you know, I mean, we get him alluded to quite interestingly throughout A New Hope of, you know, old crazy guy, lives on the outskirts, you know, that wizard and all that.
I want to be an elder hermit. It's
so interesting, obviously now with who we know the character to be, to have him reduced to so much. But I think for me, he filled a role. He did what he needed to do to advance Luke into the story. And so A New Hope wasn't always the most material to work with for the character.
Yeah.
Jarod, A New Hope, Ben Kenobi. Before the show, with a you can feel free to pull from the show and recent media and everything. But how did you feel about Ben Kenobi originally?
Well, I mean, the thing with Ben Kenobi is that, like, you know, A New Hope, there's a reason why A New Hope is taught when people are trying to introduce students to Joseph Campbell. Because it is so very much like the hero's journey. Like, you could not map it out any better if you tried, and Lucas tried.
Yeah.
And one of the things that makes Obi-Wan so fascinating, beginning to end, chronologically, whatever you want to do, is that you start with somebody who is meant to be this old mentor wizard character. You know, like I don't think there's anybody in fiction, broadly speaking, who is as much this archetype as Obi Wan Kenobi, like short of like a Gandalf. Like
I was literally about to say Gandalf is a close second.
The only character who's in the
We all went there.
conversation for just like, I'm an old man and I know things about the magic and I'm going to teach you the magic and now we know the magic together.
Yeah.
And now that
I
you know
died.
enough of the magic to teach yourself the magic, I'm dead. You know, like,
But I
the
will
Merlin
talk to you from
archetype.
the afterlife.
exactly like he is that.
Yep.
He is that distilled. Like that is like it is essence of Campbellian mentor archetype. And that's what Obi-Wan's meant to be at that point in the story. Again, retroactively, he becomes a little bit more interesting where it's like, okay, like he is bold-faced lying to Luke. Part of that is Alec Guinness's performance, whether or not the late Sir Alec Guinness liked the movie or not. He did that little bit of like a uncomfortable rock back and forth talking to Luke that set the stage for it to be like, and now we're going to retroactively make this way crazier than you think it is.
Right.
So yeah, no, I mean, at the time, you know, like there's a reason why for the longest time, pre-prequel and even post-prequel to a certain extent, old mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi was just shorthand for old mentor.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, it fulfills that purpose, and it may perhaps be a little one note, but characters like that are completely built around their charm and their impact on the plot, not necessarily being a fascinating character unto themselves. So yeah,
for sure. Well, and Boop and I were even talking recently about like part of the appeal of so much recent Star Wars media. The heart of it is how it plays to the greater context. Like everything has an implication on something else. You watch this, obvious, you know, Kenobi. It enhances the prequels. It enhances the original trilogy. It can enhance a lot of things, even Rebels. If you're into it,
I am into it.
Book of Boba Fett. You know, you don't really watch Attack of the Clones and Return of the Jedi quite the same after that. I think once Boba Fett is a character again, and Clone Wars did it over there, but now this was in the forefront.
yeah,
And time after time, we see these stories that not only tell the story they're telling right in front of us, but tell a story to the stories around them. And whatnot. And I think that's what's so interesting about Star Wars right now is it's always a domino effect. Every new thing is a domino effect of the next. I'm looking forward to what Andor is going to do to that same effect, where it's making the Rise of the Empire more interesting. It's making Rogue One more interesting, which Rogue One began the journey of making other Star Wars more interesting, right? So
it's all cement between the bricks.
Yep.
I'm just excited for Space Antifa.
Same, bro. You and me both.
Oh my goodness!
If he touches a hut, I'm gonna go ethereal.
You know what? And even Diego Luna's coming back with a little bit of a mullet. So there's something about there's power in the mullet right now.
Power in the mullet. That's our next.
Can we get a Star Wars Twitter account?
We brought it up too many times. I'm letting my hair down for the rest
there
of the
you go.
Yes. It's important to do so now.
You man on the front cover of a romance novel.
Yes,
Michael.
Yes.
Yes.
You're one shirt too many.
Jarod the Dark Jedi and Paws of Thunder coming this fall. Michael, Old Ben for you, A New Hope, circa. How is that character for you?
So this is why I hate being on a stream with Jarod, is because anytime I think I have something smart or insightful to say, he says it first and then says it better than I would have said it.
He did that to me on my own podcast about Asherad Het, so I don't know.
Don't bring it up. He'll go on a tangent.
Yeah,
so Asherad Het.
So, but no, I 100% agree with everything Jarod said. You know, he is the archetypal sage, mentor, wizard man, who fills a functional role. But I think he still has a fair bit of depth. I may be a bit biased because A New Hope is my favorite Star Wars film, but I think to moments, just
Chocolate
small
chip
moments.
cookies are your favorite cookies too, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
No, actually,
Vanilla
my favorite
boy.
cookies are these lemon Oreos.
Oh, that's
Wow.
right. Bringing it back. Bringing it back.
But like
love
small
you.
moments in A New Hope, like Obi-Wan, like when he's talking to Han Solo, and Han's like, "You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?" And he goes, "Should I have?" Like, just small
I
moments
love
like
his-
that are incredible.
I love his face in that one. That's the most like, all right, child, I'm gonna entertain you a moment.
Yeah, he has a few moments of being sassy, and you get the backstory that he gives with Vader, which is a biased perspective, but I
Very.
feel like that gives him more than just the plain archetypal mentor character, and so I think original trilogy Obi-Wan is a solid foundation for the Obi-Wan that the prequels and other supplementary material eventually build upon.
For sure. Well, and there's such an interesting brilliance to like what you all have mentioned of those scenes that are 40 plus years old now that got filled in after the fact, like his trauma, recounting Anakin and the Clone Wars and everything. It's like those little moments. It's insane that those were built in. For whatever reason, George included them. I'm not one of those that's like George knew what he was doing the moment he did that. Like no, like
No, there's
he
no planning.
knew.
I have a movie that can prove you wrong.
I'm sure you do.
Mhm.
I do believe George knew there was something, and I will say, what does make another reason for why original trilogy Ben is a little less interesting is because he's so archetypal. He's filling a role so much.
Yeah.
Everything else enhances that later on, but in the films themselves, he's a segue. But I think what does make him more interesting than every archetype that comes after is he's not just an outside being. Like it's not just I know something you don't know, so I'm here to tell you what you don't know. It's more of a I'm a player in this too. Like even in the
Yeah.
original trilogy, it's not his fight necessarily, but he is in the game. He still has skin in it to the most point, and so even George Lucas knowing, hey, there's some hurt and some trauma. It's more than what you're telling this kid was enough for the brilliant actor Alec Guinness to run with and make space for that to get filled in later.
Yes. I want to clarify real quick. When I said I got a movie that can prove you wrong, I was referring to people who think Lucas had it planned out. I wasn't saying, JD, you're wrong, and here's why. I was saying George
No.
Lucas clearly didn't plan this because the siblings swap spit. Was
Yeah.
the joke I was making. I realized that sounded pithy at JD and not the intended.
I love you too much to have taken it that way. So
We
you're
know.
but no,
fine.
like it's one of those things where George Lucas's lucky brilliance is misunderstood as
Mr. Magooing his
genius.
way into
Exactly.
a mythos.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean,
That is an excellent way of putting that.
we were talking about that recently of just like so much is accidental. So much of it is just
Mhm.
George being like, I don't know,
Whoops, it's
and
a
then
franchise.
coming up with a serious answer later, or coming up with a serious answer on the spot. And it's just like, oh my gosh, yeah, that makes total sense. That explains
Yes.
all. Like,
Here,
guy, it's not. It's interesting how not serious it is to the
Yeah.
creator sometimes.
the thing that I've learned about my father, who is, dope dude, love him.
a
You
good
can
guy.
ask him a question, and if he does not know the answer to it, he will just make something up. And I respect the hell out of that.
It's a dad thing.
It's something that I have adopted myself.
The different
And that's George Lucas answering questions about Star Wars.
Yeah, the difference is there's these glasses pushing nerds following him around with notebooks for everything he says. So it's just like, oh, it's
But
canon,
George,
canon, and it's just so. Like I said, do I think there was an idea there? Obviously, otherwise
Yeah.
he wouldn't have directed Guinness in the way he did. Did he have exactly what the prequels were in his head then?
No.
Heck no.
Do I think he knew who Jaster Muriel was? No.
Do I think that lessens Star Wars and its impact? No. Like, no.
Not at all. Not at all. You have to be really silly to have that kind of opinion. It's something I so vehemently refuse to take seriously. Like again, like you can't to kind of a sidebar type thing with the sequel trilogy. Like, yes, do I wish they had more of like a strong outline? Sure. You can't look me in my eyes and tell me that planning out your franchise means it's going to be good. Because George Lucas was making shit up, and you can't tell me
The
he
whole way
wasn't.
through.
The whole way through. The whole way through. You know how I know? Because the siblings kiss.
Exactly.
Well, I mean,
a lot.
even
Like they kiss hard.
even as recently with the prequels recently.
Yes, 20 years ago was recent.
I remember my mother.
He didn't write episode 2 until after episode 1 had really gone out. Like,
No.
and even then he wasn't satisfied completely with the episode 1 they shipped off, but it was out now, and it's like, it's one of those things, like, does he have an idea where it's going to go? Yes. Did he have it exactly? No. He was waiting to see what people think. Like, people really liked that Clone Wars thing. I guess I should write what that should be. Like,
the only thing he ever planned was Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And that's just because he really
which
wanted
is an
to do
underrated
Aliens.
movie.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, you can't convince me that somebody had the whole thing mapped out. Like my biggest thing, like remove Luke and Leia kissing. The biggest evidence for Lucas never had this mapped out quite as much as we like to think he did. You cannot go from what Han Solo used to look like to what Han Solo does look like and tell me that there wasn't a whole lot of metamorphosis of idea. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
Which is fine and good. And I like the thing that made it.
Yeah, I mean, either we would have had to wait 40 years for him to perfect the story and then do it, or we get it growing along the way. Either way, we've gotten what we got.
Which we never would. Like, look at the special editions. If it was up to him, he'd be tweaking things until the day he dies.
Be working on it
for better or worse, whether you like it or not. We'd have prequel special editions by now.
We'd have
if it was still under Lucas's hands.
I mean, there's an argument to be made for some special editions to continue to happen, but
I mean, the Blu-rays themselves were kind of prequel special editions.
True.
That's true.
McClunky, like it's continued to this day. It's just been subtle. Anyway, this is not the George Lucas cast.
It could be.
It could.
I have it on the mind because of some research I have had to do recently for a project.
You
do research for your podcast?
Yeah, sometimes.
What a
nerd.
When you're on Star Wars Twitter too, these arguments come up surprisingly often. When you're like, "Hey, I like this thing," and it's just like George Lucas would never, blah blah blah.
Who cares?
But
George Lucas had siblings make out. Your opinion is not valid.
Right.
Space Alabama.
Now, whether we believe that he was telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth in episode 4 of who Darth Vader was, either way, it's different by the time we obviously get to episode 5 and 6. And I think that kind of enhances the role that Kenobi plays to Luke in that, because now Luke knows something I think Obi-Wan was always trying to hope to keep him from. Kenobi kind of evolves from this broken character representing a past institution and society, trying to help current climate get better, and now he represents this failed teacher, trying to kind of do right by the son of his failed student.
And I think the argument can be made of what he thought was going to be Luke's failure was attachments, because that's what failed Anakin. Like, that is almost exactly Anakin's entire problem.
Yep.
From a certain point of view.
No, it can be more complicated than that, but in a very condensed way. Yeah. And so to put it to you, since you jumped on, like, so the perspective of Obi-Wan in 5 and 6 are very, look, you have to do this. You have to do it this way. What
this is the way that the Jedi would do it.
Yeah. What did you think about that Obi-Wan?
I thought that it was an interesting character.
Did it take you closer or further from him? Likely.
It made me like him less, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Like I grew
Words
up
are hard.
I grew up with the archetype of the old man in the cave, like you guys were talking about. Like I I was raised on fantasy because that's what my dad watched all the time. And, there is something very important about the old wizard in the cave. It's Sahasrara. It's Merlin.
Watch your mouth.
Shut up. I'll kill you on this podcast. It's dangerous to go alone, take this, stab you in the chest. Yeah. It's an important archetype is what I'm getting at, essentially. And you need a teacher in those moments. And then you get an almost heel turn of, actually, I didn't tell you the whole truth, but I wasn't gonna. So the fact that you find that out is actually really inconvenient. You shouldn't know that that's your dad. So don't worry about that. Just worry about killing him.
Yep.
Because like I said, that's what the Jedi would do.
How to the panel, how do you think that was all going to go down? Like, clearly
He never would have done it.
Like, if you
that's interesting opinion. I like that.
To me.
That's what I wonder. How do you think it would have gone down had everything stayed according to Yoda and Obi-Wan's plan, that Luke would just be their instrument to undo the Sith unknowingly?
That boy either would have walked into a suicide situation if they hadn't had that little powwow in the elevator, where he would have just immediately died, not even 2 seconds into the throne room. I cannot see that boy holding his own without his emotional attachments. They told me so much,
but they didn't mention the lightning.
Exactly. Like, I could either see that going, or he fights Vader and loses anyway. Personally, I don't think he would have survived that situation, but that's just me.
Yeah, and Vader would still have found out that Luke was his son. So
yeah, because that happened outside of Kenobi's control. Yeah.
So there may have still been an attempt to turn Luke to the dark side, and I think without him trying to pull his father back to the light, I don't know. I don't think Luke would have given into the dark side, but I think it does open that door a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's something really interesting where, like, we were talking about, like, the Gandalf comparisons with Obi-Wan, that, like, the introduction of Obi-Wan lied to you about your father. You also you get like kind of like a Dumbledore type thing going on now as well, where you have that like where like Dumbledore's kind of got that edge to him. It's like a kind of almost like a Batman thing in a way, where it's like depending on who's writing Batman and how much of a bastard you want Bruce to be, where like there's a little bit of that, like, yeah, I'm kind of a shit person and like kept this information from you because I couldn't trust you with it.
I'm sorry, I just imagine Dumbledore now. It's just like, Harry, did you put your name in the goblet of fire?
Which is
where is she?
Did you put your name in the goblet of fire?
Dumbledore said calmly.
Exactly. Don't read those books.
That is calm.
Tell me, Draco. Do you bleed? She will.
But there's that level of like kind of like a duplicitous nature to him. Yeah. Where, like, I do think eventually he would, but it's that like the greater good. But like, that's the logic our enemies use, Wanda.
I think the biggest thing for me is it's hard to imagine them addressing it, only because I can't imagine how you would do that. Like, I can't imagine after sending this kid to go save the galaxy by slaying his father and a decrepit geriatric politician. Like, how after that you're like, great job, that was your dad. And also your grandfather, sort of.
No.
Yes.
Jarod, multiple sources have confirmed it.
Multiple sources can kiss my ass. I know. There is no relation. Knock that off.
He influenced. He helped influence.
He manipulated the Force.
We don't know that in canon.
He was a donor.
We don't know that in canon. We don't know that in canon.
It is only heavily implied in canon.
Legends, I will give you that ground. Canon,
canon.
It is a misdirect by the dark side to make Vader think that Palpatine helped create him in the Charles Soule comic. Different podcast for a different day, but I will die on that hill.
I was gonna say we're I mean, even with making this about Luke and his, but I think it's the card that Kenobi has in that I'm intrigued by, and I'll remain intrigued.
I think he would. In my opinion, I think he would. I think that what Obi-Wan wanted in a perfect galaxy was to condition Luke into like the Jedi ideology enough that Darth Vader is your father is a pill he would be able to swallow as easily as humanly possible.
Like,
But
to the point
because
that he'd go along with it because he believes in the goal so much. Like,
Yeah,
but
he's
it's
drank
like,
the flavor.
even that lends itself to like Obi-Wan is the best you can get out of a broken system. Like Luke's failings as a Jedi Master all the way in the sequel trilogy is from a direct result of the fact that he has Jedi poster boy Obi Wan Kenobi and resting on my laurels ass Yoda training him. He has their ideology so mainlined into his belief of the Jedi that leads to his own failings. He repeats the same mistakes that Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Windu all made because those are the types of people who trained him and brought him up. You know, Luke does not have this like fresh take on the Jedi that a lot of people would like to think that he does, or at least that he did in Legends. Here, like, he has this like really like radical streak of like, no, I'm going to redeem Anakin. But other than that, he is a card carrying Jedi of the Old Republic. And
yeah,
I think that.
No, I was just gonna say, I think the misconception is that he followed exactly blind, like he knew he was blindly following exactly what the Jedi Order had already done. I think he had that behind it because, like, for me reading with The Last Jedi, you know, he has that idea of this all happened because I was Luke Skywalker. I thought I could be different because I was Luke Skywalker. Like, I think he thought because he had saved his father, he could do the Jedi thing better. And it was right into those same patterns, like you were saying. So I agreeing with you in that, like, I think the misread of The Last Jedi all the time is that it just suddenly went wrong for him one day, when in reality what we're seeing is he tried to do better, but there's only so many times or so many ways you can try and redeem and save that institution. Exactly. I think
it's the Steven Universe principle. If we have any Steven Universe people in the chat, there's none.
No, sorry.
I have very casual awareness and have seen a bit.
You should.
It's a good show. Everybody should watch it.
I was correct in the direction you were going with that, but I was not willing to chance it by saying it out loud.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things. There's value in feeling like, hey, if I do this, it might be different. But sometimes it's no matter how many or who does this thing, it's still this thing. And I think with the Jedi Order, like, the Jedi ideology is totally up for grabs. I think Rey can take hold of that and fully live that and teach that and pass that on. I think it's the Order and the institution that spoils the ideology, which is a whole conversation in and of itself.
Yeah, with real world implications.
But coming back to Kenobi in 5 and 6, his perspective as Luke's kind of cheerleader now from beyond the grave, kind of encouraging Luke in the direction of what he has to do. Because it's, you know, what's great about the original trilogy is it's two stories at once. It's this Order trying to overtake the galaxy, being fought against by a small ragtag group of rebels, and it's a personal journey of a family gone awry, you know, because of their connection to this spiritual ether in the universe. And so, but the solution to both are in usurping the leadership of Palpatine and Vader. And so, Michael, so that way you can show up, Jarod, with your good opinions. How do you think about Force Ghost Kenobi and his role with pushing Luke in that direction?
So Force Ghost Kenobi a lot of times tends to be very plot functional in 5 and 6. He gets Luke to go to Dagobah in 5 and says, hey, listen to Yoda. You know,
all right, bye.
And then
the Jedi would lose their minds today. People would lose their minds today. If that happened.
Just like, who is this Muppet? Yeah,
I love him. I love that.
So
apparently a Trump supporter.
Well,
if you watch TikTok.
and two,
Gina Carano?
oh God. Well, and also the functionality of just like, if you face Vader, you have to do it alone. I can't interfere. I only booked for 3 days of shooting.
Exactly. They
can't
came to
do
my
that.
house to film for an hour.
Right? Like
But
I can't be there.
in 6 he has again some more exposition to justify the the reveal of Darth Vader being Anakin's father. But also I feel like he sets the tone of that movie for being like the only option is to kill Vader. Like he's not a man, he is more machine now. There is one option that you have, which seems to be again the opposite advice he was giving in the last movie of don't face Vader. Now it's you have to kill Vader. In some ways he's sort of representing the hypocrisy of the order and the institution that he's come to represent, but that's a bit of subtext that gets added later. In that movie though, it's establishing Luke as having only one option when Luke chooses to forge his own destiny instead.
Absolutely. Well, and I like you said, I think episode 5 he's very functional of I need you to get here, and 6 is really where Kenobi's character starts to play to, angel and devil on Luke's shoulder kind of situation.
He could be your angle or your devil.
Right. What direction is this kid going to choose with everything we know now and all that's happened? And like I said, there's the pressure of like the implications if I don't get this figured out, because it's not just about me. It's about my friends on the moon of Endor. It's about all of the rebels, all of the people in the galaxy. Like, if I don't get this wrong, a lot of people get screwed over, right? Like, and here's this voice, right in his ear that's saying, "You've got to do this. You've got to do this. You've got to do it, and you've got to do it this way." And it's interesting how it calls back, because I after Kenobi watched the prequels. And it's interesting where, like in Revenge of the Sith, it's the same thing Yoda gave Obi-Wan after learning about Anakin. The pressure of, like, we can't even think about the personal story happening here. You've got to stop Darth Vader. I've got to stop the Emperor, and we've got to save the galaxy.
And then they proceeded to not do that.
Yeah, they both did a horrible job at it. But I think it's episode 6, Kenobi really tries to push purpose, like the greater purpose. Like, we can't get too much into our feelings and our thoughts about all this, because there's this greater purpose. We can't worry about the boy that you trained. We've got to look at the greater purpose and save the galaxy. Because if you don't think about it too much, it's going to get a lot easier to kill him.
Yeah, it's the exact opposite of what Qui-Gon told him, is that he is focusing too much on the future and the greater, cosm of the universe, that he doesn't look at the moment and mourn his friend. He does not think that there's any way, shape, or form that he could have saved Anakin in that moment. So I guess killing him is the best way to go.
Well, and two, with bringing up Qui-Gon, like, it's interesting how in episode 1 he tells Anakin, like, feel, don't think, which seems like such an anti-Jedi thing, but like,
exactly, it's almost as if that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, like that was kind of what saved Luke. Like, he didn't think when he was there in the throne room. I think he just felt like, no, this is not right. This can't be the way to do it. I wonder what that meeting in the Force Ghost Lounge was like when Anakin showed up, and Obi-Wan and all, apparently Aayla Secura and Ahsoka and Mace Windu and all that are there too.
Everybody else is just like, oh,
everybody's
they
there.
let anybody in here, huh?
Force Heaven is the funniest concept if you think about it for too long.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Can we get a sitcom on Disney Plus?
A sitcom.
I want it only done with puppets.
No, actually, Boob, that's a long-running pitch on TNAP, is the sitcom where you just have, like, The Office, but the Galactic Empire.
Have I just been a part of TNAP for this entire time?
I think you have.
Back when All Remaining Systems had a podcast, we lost an episode, but we had talked about an entire Inquisitor series that was just an Office-esque sitcom. So maybe we're all just making the same jokes.
I mean,
it literally, seriously though, like it would be so fun. Like one of my biggest things, this is going to be such a sidebar, was like the blueprint for it was I told a very like oversimplified version of the plot of Labyrinth of Evil.
Ooh,
where like
good book.
The beginning of the book is basically Obi-Wan and Anakin show up. That's the Legends version of the business on Cato Neimoidia that doesn't count. Obi-Wan accidentally gets stoned, fights an entire army of battle droids by himself, and they almost capture Newt Gunray. And Newt Gunray, when he leaves, accidentally leaves behind his stupid little hologram projector chair that is meant solely for the purposes of communicating with Sidious. Gunray eventually is on a hologram call with Grievous, Dooku, and Sidious, and they're like, okay, glad you made it out of there. You have the chair, right? And Gunray going, about that.
It's an Office episode all in one.
Do you think it would be bad if the Republic had it? And then that call ends. Palpatine immediately calls Count Dooku, and I'm going to push my microphone away because I'm about to yell for comedic effect. I'm warning people with headphones in. Where Palpatine just calls and goes, "You need to kidnap me. Come to Coruscant." Right. I'm going to use my F-bomb. You need to come to Coruscant right fucking now and kidnap me. I don't care how many ships you bring, Grievous, all of them. Get me now. Because, like, literally, like, they're all in the process of going, hold on, why is this Darth Sidious guy broadcasting from 500 Republica? How is it coming from the basement of the Senate building? That's weird. That's suspicious. Boom, boom, boom. Separatist ships just start showing up in hyperspace above Coruscant. Right?
When we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, we're going to have to get back to that. The Chancellor's been kidnapped. This is kind of batshit crazy, even for Grievous. It's so fun. Like, it is just this hilarious misadventure because Palpatine's like, kidnap me. Come get me.
Right.
Get me right now.
Pick me up.
And for
Mom, I'm scared. Pick me up.
Dooku, pick me up.
I'm scared. Labyrinth of Evil is a fantastic book, but this is basically the plot. And then it goes into what would be the early parts of the Clone Wars microseries. Such a good book, but it is that dumb in some ways that it would make a great Office script.
We need to do a dramatic reading of that book.
I'll do it.
Parts of Kenobi almost felt like little bits of The Office, and I can almost just imagine like the fifth brother and all of that doing little interviews afterwards. It's just like, she will not get the throne. I'm next in line.
I'm gonna need a ladder to get the cat in the ceiling.
Hello.
I've seen that episode. Yes.
Well, so we tease at it a lot, but to get into some of what builds up Obi-Wan beyond what he is, because at some point the story is out of his hands, obviously, and we've talked about it. We all know it. If you like Star Wars, you know what happens and how it goes. But eventually the original trilogy ends. Of yada yada yada. Books make money, and George Lucas is like, "Hey, I want that money. I'm going to make 3 more movies," and hence the prequels, aka backstory.
Heck yes. The best backstory you've ever seen in your life.
Yes, the illustrious origin story of many a character, including a ripe babyface 19-year-old Obi Wan Kenobi, circa The Phantom Menace. A lot of stuff goes down when you turn 19 in Star Wars, apparently.
A lot.
That's where everything goes wrong.
Everything goes wrong at 19. Rey, Anakin, and now Kenobi gets added into the mix.
And Luke.
Yeah, Luke is who I mean, actually, not Anakin. Anakin was 9 and his future wife was 10. So they were
but in Attack of the Clones, he's 19. So
yes, that's true. So first of all, only because it's just recently come to my attention from a few people that apparently it was a weird casting choice. But how did you guys feel with Ewan coming into the role, and who has now obviously become Obi-Wan to a generation?
Yes.
Were
Definitive.
you into that? Did you see the logic, or was it just like, oh yeah, he can do an accent? That's you know.
I was one when the Phantom Menace came out.
You
God.
child.
I was also one when the Phantom Menace came out.
Gosh.
They're babies.
They're babies.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor's Obi Wan Kenobi. So
Yeah. Yes, you infant. Yes, he is.
Right. You mean it's not Ewan in episode 4, 5, and 6 with a lot of makeup?
Yeah. I mean,
You know-
Obi Wan Kenobi isn't even my favorite Alec Guinness. There's a movie that he did called Murder by Death.
Yes, you
That
mention
is
it all the time.
One of the funniest murder mysteries I've ever seen in my life.
And I only mean that because it always comes up that
yes, I do.
and I'm putting this out there for anybody that would judge me. I don't know if that exists, but Star Wars is the only Alec Guinness I've ever seen.
I do judge you.
Same.
I
judge you.
I don't know, you know.
I know.
And I'm kind of okay with that, learning more about him. Not that he was a horrible person or anything like that. It's just like, obviously Star Wars was a little beneath him. I don't really care what he thinks. I liked what he did, and so he doesn't really get a say so in my feelings.
You don't like any movies made before 1977?
If they're not Hammer or Toho, no, I don't.
He was in a
They
couple
don't
of Hammer
exist.
movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
and even Hammer has Star Wars actors in it. So
So many.
Exactly.
So many. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, so many greats. Anyway.
Yes.
Ewan.
Because
you knew Ewan before Star Wars, unlike
yes, I did.
me and many Star Wars fans.
I saw Train Spotting much later, obviously.
Yep.
What was the one with the
Such a good
glitter? Velvet Goldmine?
Yeah. Velvet Goldmine, one of my favorite music movies
Do
ever.
yourselves a favor.
Watch Velvet Goldmine if you want to see some salacious things.
Every chance I get an opportunity to bring this godforsaken video game up, I do. Obviously I saw the movies as a kid.
Yeah.
The thing that made me a hardcore Star Wars fan is this trash ass Xbox game called Star Wars Obi-Wan.
Trash ass is the most apt way to put that. That game.
It was a video game of its
sucks.
time.
Terrible.
Yes, it was.
And I play it once a year at least.
Not every
The whole
Star Wars
thing.
game can be Bombad Racing, okay? Lay off.
It's for so many reasons. It's great. The voice actor they got to play Obi Wan Kenobi sounds more like a Norwegian man trying to do an impression of someone doing an impression of Ewan McGregor's Obi Wan Kenobi.
Amazing.
This was before the James Arnold Taylor era.
And it's turned up to 11 because there's a button that makes you talk whenever you want to. So at any point you could just walk away, rock around and go, hello, 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 hello. I'm not sure. Do you understand my language? He'd do that at Aliens if you hit Y too many times. Low key, a little space racist. I love it.
I mean,
yes.
Perfect for you.
But anyway, if you sat through the credit, I'm not going to get into all of the game because I've talked about it like anytime I get an opportunity to. If you get to the end of the credits, and you only get the credits when you like play through the game entirely. Like you can go back and replay missions, but the end cinematic and the credits only triggers when you hit new game and then beat it. This horrible Ewan McGregor voice double does a Star Wars themed version of the Choose monologue from Train Spotting.
Oh,
what?
Wow.
That is an incredible.
Stand by. I'm going to find this so you can screen share it and play it. It is the funniest damn thing. You have no idea.
That is, I have
Y'all
never
keep
heard
talking.
of this, Jared.
Y'all keep
What?
talking. I'm going to pull it
That's
up.
amazing.
Yes, Velvet Goldmine is a fantastic movie, and everybody should watch it.
So it's Train Spotting.
So was Train Spotting. The baby
Choose
on
a
the
force,
ceiling
choose a
freaked me
lightsaber.
out.
I haven't seen a bad Ewan McGregor film that I can think of.
No. Oh man, Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge, Big Fish.
Oh,
He's in season 3
even-
of Fargo as 2 different characters, and it's
He
amazing.
did do that.
That's right. Yeah.
he's an incredible actor.
Even
He was in Obi Wan Kenobi. I don't know if you've heard of this show. It's on
No,
Disney
I've
Plus.
actually never
What the-
seen that one.
Oh my God, this Obi Wan Kenobi. Even Birds of Prey, very good in that.
So
as a
good in
villain.
Birds of Prey. He's so
Really
good.
enjoyed that.
He's such a brat in that movie, and I love it.
This is my things. Why is he touching my things?
I love Unhinged. I love when he gets to do more because he is such a even keel, fun guy. I think he gets such good things, and he's even said it's a lot of fun being a villain sometimes, being able to just be unhinged for whatever reason I want.
He was in One Bad Thing.
Oh.
He was in the live action remake of Beauty and the Beast, but he was the one good thing in it.
No. He was Lumiere,
Hot
right?
take, it's not that bad. Hot take, live action Beauty and the Beast is fine.
Terrible.
That's every live action Disney movie. It's fine. It exists. It doesn't need to, but it does.
I'm a theater kid. It was like just seeing a production of the musical with a really big budget. So that's what I got out of it.
Would be a fool not to mention as well Dr. Sleep. Most recent. And I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it was great. The Winnie and the Pooh thing.
The Winnie and the Pooh.
Yeah.
Winnie and the Pooh.
Both of them at the same
My
time.
Winnie and my Pooh.
Oh,
I linked the video to it
Yes.
in the private chat. It takes you through the last seconds of the Darth Maul boss fight, and then it plays the Choose monologue. If you would like to play it for the audience,
how long is it?
It is it's like a minute and 30 seconds.
Oh,
if
that's
you skip,
totally doable. That's going to be our big finale. So I tell you
Love it.
a lot.
It's so funny.
So for the sake of time,
Yes.
For the sake of Tim.
Yes. So we're all on board with you, and it sounds like we love the man.
Absolutely.
He's a great guy.
Iconic Obi-Wan. Just like when you think Obi-Wan now, it is Ewan.
Yeah, well, and he's gotten the benefit of getting the heavy hitting material for the character.
True.
It's part of why I'm so glad. Not only is it a beloved character that he played now, but now he gets to hear that he is directly connected to the people that love him and his role so much. Bringing him and Hayden back has been one of the best things Star Wars has done recently. And so I'm glad they get to see and hear the effect that they have had on fans being these characters. And so that said, with Kenobi kind of lumping the prequel trilogy together, from Padawan, and that for me was instantly more interesting because it just definitely wasn't quite what I expected. Even as a kid, I didn't have to read too much into, he's still a by the books kind of character and everything, but he seemed snarky in his own way. Starting off obviously with the line of just negotiations were short, to everything of just how he talks to Jar Jar when they first meet and all that. He's
a
different.
teenager.
Yeah, he's a little feeling himself a bit. I don't know if that vibe was there for anyone.
He's
but
a young man who definitely grows into his sense of humor.
Yes, he's young,
Right.
dumb, and full
He
of the
eventually develops the ass to throw behind being that much of a shithead.
Yep.
Well,
I'm still looking forward to that happening for me someday.
Well, I mean, I think the chemistry that was missing was someone to play off of it with, which obviously Anakin, Hayden in that role, they do so well together back and forth. And I think that's where most of Kenobi's humor gets refined, for sure. But
we decided we were going to come and rescue you, Master.
Good job.
Good job.
Right. So Jarod, what'd you think of Ewan's Kenobi run in the prequel trilogy? How he gave depth to this by then even iconic character of Kenobi.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of it. Going back to what I said earlier, you have this character who's again, shorthand for sagely old wizard mentor. And then you make him this kind of pissy 20-something who becomes a snarky dad, and then your best friend by the end. You make him so much more complex. There's a lot of kind of surface level complexity that gets added by making him a liar in the original trilogy, where by the end of the prequel trilogy, you almost kind of get the sense that he told Luke that lie not because he didn't want to tell Luke the truth, not because he doubted Vader would be killed if he told Luke the truth, but because like Obi-Wan had to cling to that. Like Obi-Wan kind of tells on himself in a way. He's like, like the things that we, hold dear and believe, or, things from a certain point of view. Obi-Wan's like, yeah, like I can't really think of the fact that that's Anakin.
Yeah.
Because it hurts me and I've lost so much and so much I've been put through so much.
It seems more selfish.
It is a little selfish, but there's also like a good selfishness to a degree for that. Where like Obi-Wan in some ways, by the time we see him in Kenobi and in the originals, he's kind of choosing himself for the first time ever, where you don't see that from him in the prequels and in the Clone War. He is so dedicated to the cause above all else. And the only thing that he's like even dedicated to the cause more than himself is Qui-Gon. And even then, like his willingness to, I'm going to break character for a second, that you cracked your neck, it sounded like a firework.
Is Taylor okay?
Yeah, she did a little like crunchy crunch, and I was like, damn. Like it sounded like she got General Zodded over here. Like, wow.
It's a very specific reference.
Wow.
I got it,
It was exactly for this group.
But no, like he's finally choosing himself, and with Qui-Gon, like, and I love what you brought up earlier, JD, with that comment about, like, well, if you think the Jedi Council is so wise, then just go with whatever the hell they say.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan almost makes it clear that he trusts Qui-Gon over the Council. In that moment where he's like, no, I'm training the boy. I don't care what any of you say.
Yeah.
I'm training this kid because that's what Qui-Gon wanted.
Yeah.
And I know Qui-Gon well enough to know that he's right.
If he died for this,
Yeah,
which
as much as I hate it.
he did.
Yeah. So he's just, Obi-Wan becomes so much more complex in many ways, but he also becomes more human. And this is like this is those moments where like, this is how you tell a Superman story kind of thing. Where like, show me who Clark Kent is.
Exactly.
Yes, these are the
Like
Clark
this is
Kent
like we're
years of
going back to
Kenobi.
like a Richard Donner Superman type thing. Like show me why Clark Kent is human and why Kal-El is aspirational, and how they do truly become the same thing, one and the same, because of that resiliency and like pure of heart nature. Like when people talk about the whole, name characters from another universe who could lift Mjolnir, Obi Wan Kenobi is always the top of my list.
Yeah,
like
that's a fair one.
Like Superman's a given. No, R2D2's a psychopath.
I was gonna say he's got too much of a foul mouth.
He's willing to kill, though.
I don't think that helps his case.
No,
well, that's part of what makes you worthy, is the willingness to kill for the good. We're getting off track. We're talking about Star Wars.
Mjolnir cast coming soon.
Obi-Wan, before the moment he cleaves Anakin apart and lights him on fire, could lift Mjolnir, and the only reason he couldn't is because he's too far in his own head to let himself lift it. And that's who we got, is someone who is worthy. Like that's the best answer I can give. Like original trilogy Obi-Wan Kenobi, maybe, I don't know. He sure is sagely, he sure is brilliant. Like again, he's space Gandalf for, to be incredibly reductive, but like original trilogy and Clone Wars Obi-Wan, that's a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's somebody who has a lot going on the inside, but like realizes he needs to be more for other people, and to be a paragon, even if he doesn't see himself as a paragon. It's
not really his choice. It's how he's perceived based on who he chooses to be. I think what adds to him is, as we mentioned, Kenobi first introduction, he's an archetype. He has to fill a certain role, and this is the first time to really get to characterize Kenobi a little bit more. It's not about helping this kid on his journey. Obi-Wan is very tied to the journey of Anakin Skywalker, who the story is really about. And so he gets his own full development throughout that. Michael, do you think that the journey with Kenobi through the prequel trilogy ends like episode 3 ends and you're like, that is now the Kenobi I once knew. You're like, does the transition happen pretty seamlessly, you think, from what we got in 1, 2, and 3 into 4, or did you benefit from having something in between there to transition that more?
I think both. Like before we got the show, I was very much like, what we get at the end of Revenge of the Sith is the perfect lead up to the ideal Obi-Wan that we get in episode 4. But at the same time, I think having that transition adds so much depth to the character because we truly see Kenobi at his lowest point.
Yeah.
Which for me has become like the archetype of hero, especially in Star Wars, that I just adore and that I relate to the most. Luke and TLJ is my favorite version of Luke. The sort of broken Obi-Wan we get in the show is maybe my favorite version of Obi-Wan. At least the beginning of my favorite version in Obi-Wan, because we see him overcome those things. And he gets his own sort of hero in that way. And we get to see him go from someone who is disillusioned with himself to forgiving himself and willing to move on and become the Obi-Wan that we all know.
Yeah, I think it kind of calls back to what Jarod talked about early on. Like when you watch the prequels, when you watch the Clone Wars and all of that, you see this character that does have moments. It's hard not to, given the climate of things, war and all of this. But he always bounces, right? Like, all right, Qui-Gon dies, but it's okay. I've got Anakin. I'll train him. It's going to be okay. I lose Satine, but, I'm going to continue to fight for her cause, and I'm going to continue to believe in what she believed in. That keeps her alive in some way. Like, you see him constantly come back in that prequel era. It's only here that I think in the in between of 3 and 4, he's firmly on the bottom.
Yeah.
Like,
If I may,
he's
I'm
down
sorry,
there.
Judy, sorry.
No, you're good.
good.
Yeah, take it.
So much of that, like, because he's the quintessential Jedi, because he does everything so right by Jedi standards, I think that's part of why he just implodes the way he does come time for the show.
Totally.
Because he did everything right. He did everything right as far as the Jedi are concerned, and still look at what happened.
Yeah.
So like there's such a level of like, am I the problem?
You're right.
Which is the same thing that happens to Luke, where he's like, well, clearly I'm the common denominator here.
Yeah.
Clearly the Jedi are the common denominator here.
Yeah.
This is all wrong.
Well, and before this, the most interesting addition to the character that we'd gotten since the prequels happened, really, and the Clone Wars did a lot. I mentioned Satine. I mentioned Maul coming back, even, which ties into Satine. Like, so much of the Clone Wars, like, we focus on a lot of things, but Clone Wars actually does a good bit, a good bit for Kenobi. It's definitely more about Anakin and Ahsoka and whatnot. But every now and then it deviates to other interesting characters, Kenobi being one of them. But aside from that prequel era, the most interesting thing we got recently was Twin Sons and Rebels. And there's one line in there that I think justifies, for me retroactively, because again, I was a naysayer before this, but the justification for the show, right? When Maul shows up on his doorstep, aka his stoop,
his stand.
Hey, look, it's Stoop Kid. That kid's stooping.
Stoop Kid's afraid to leave the stoop.
Look what you've become, and his, Obi-Wan's response of look
what
what
I've risen above.
This is him rising.
Right.
He needed to rise, and whether we realized it or not, episode 3 ends with him at the bottom. Like, I know there's a beautiful sunset, there's a great shot with the Aope and the Lars homestead and everything, and it seems like he's just gonna go away and come back when time calls upon him. But in all reality, everything that happened, he's on the bottom. He has not risen up yet. And
Obi Wan Kenobi is a bottom. Yes.
Yeah.
Multiple sources have confirmed this.
Thank you. Tweet it right now.
And this show,
I don't know if anybody else here watches The Boys.
No.
There was a great joke in the season finale.
Just these boys.
There was a great joke where the Wonder Woman stand-in The Boys says to one of the main characters, you look like you should be wearing a shirt that says "Please peg me, I'm a bottom." We're like just unprovoked.
Not there's anything wrong with that.
Just
No,
out of
not
nowhere.
at all. Not at all. Just unprovoked. Just says that to the main character. And a bunch of people started making memes where it was like Huey wearing a shirt that says, please peg me, I'm begging, I'm a bottom. And now I kind of see Obi-Wan in a like, please
There you
peg
go.
me, I'm a bottom.
Take that edit.
We've given you that.
They sell those shirts on Mandalore.
Of course they do. Boop, for you,
Yes.
obviously. So Twin Sons was a big promise
Yes, it was.
on my side for getting you to Rebels. It wasn't so much the I don't like it, convince me to like it, but it was more of a
Hey,
I want
Maul.
yeah it was dangling that and you can't resist.
No, I can't.
So having that beautiful moment and then getting this transition to a risen Kenobi, was that much needed for you, or
No, I pride myself on being someone who doesn't think much about the things that I consume. Which, take that or leave it. Honestly, it's just my personality at this point. Listen, Twin Sons was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in animation. Bar none.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's right up there with the Doom Wolf episodes. Like, this is beautiful. Like, this is meaningful, and it holds meaning for the rest of the story as a whole. Same thing with Clone Wars Season 7, but the Maul. I didn't need much convincing that we needed to see the story play out further. Like, I've always wanted to see how he goes from hot mullet to turtle hermit. So, I mean, there's always more stories to be told in the Star Wars.
Hurdle, if you will.
a hurdle?
Exactly. That was a Master Roshi joke for anybody who.
I got it. I was also
Thank you.
being the ass.
That's why I like you, Jarod. I told John the
It
other day.
didn't click in my brain until you explained it, but now I get it.
You're welcome, buddy.
That's why she explained it.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I think what we got in Kenobi is exactly what we needed to flesh out that character more. Like, we got all of the feelings that were already there just hit across our head with a shovel, hard and fast, and never letting up. And you know what? I enjoyed it because I'm into that kind of thing.
Right. Well, and excuse me, but I think again, it's one of those things where if you really want to, you can make the leap from 3 to 4. If you really want to, you can make the leap from 3 to Twin Sons. I think the beautiful thing about Star Wars is you can watch only the biggest given things, 1 through 9, and get everything you're supposed to get. I think it's a matter of being left with, do you want more? Because there's more.
Exactly.
And
100%.
Kenobi the show,
The supplementary
beautifully.
material is just that, supplementary.
Exactly.
And so if you didn't need Kenobi putting himself back together, if you didn't feel he was in that place, that's fine. That show's not for you. That's okay. Because I've seen mixes of reviews, and only about half of them actually dealing with Kenobi.
Yeah, most of them.
Most of them are just out of people's butts, but
which is impressive.
You know, again, if you didn't need that story, then you don't have to watch it. You can perfectly go from 3 to 4 if you so please. I think it continues the trend of, like I said, enhancing the surrounding media. And for someone like me who original trilogy, because of the order of the universe and how it came about, it's a little bit drier when it comes to this character. The original trilogy benefited a lot from this show for me.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to read the Silmarillion. You don't have to read the other Dune books. You could just stop at number 1. In my opinion, I am, I'm not a Dunologist, but like, it helps. It makes it taste better. It's alternate media is the seasoning of the fandom.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. If that was at all coherent.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing for this show for me is that we get that journey of because again, even if you end episode 3, yeah, he's on the bottom, but it seems like he's just going to bide his time until the fateful day when he goes and rescues Luke.
We thought he was just meditating in the woods, or not
Right.
the woods, the desert.
And that he clearly just abided because of his strong will and connection to the Force and his Jedihood. I like it better, though, that he abided by his personal journey, that he came around to it from struggling, that he felt everything that had transpired. Because that's what we see is that, like, he doesn't just bounce back like he has so many times before. Anakin falling was the straw on the camel's back, where it's like Kenobi's no more. Obi-Wan is gone. It's only Ben. I am what my allegiance to the Jedi has made me. He and Anakin in this show are on the same journey of picking up the pieces of what had come before them, and so I for one needed to see the story of him feeling everything that had happened and making that heel turn to the twin sons Obi-Wan, which is very near to episode 4 Obi-Wan.
And not to bring up Maul, which you did at first, but
did I?
You did.
Therefore, it is justified.
Exactly.
Since you bring it up,
they are a duality of character in many different ways, but Obi-Wan is what happens when you decide to rise above what you fail. That is exactly what is in that line. I decided to make a change. You decided to stay where you are. You're still emotionally in that trash heap on whatever planet that was. And that's your fault. You are who you choose to be. To
Raxus
borrow
Prime.
from what?
The Green
Prime.
Goblin.
Oh, yes. Well, I was thinking more Iron Giant.
To be.
Now choose, hero.
Well, I think whether they realized what they were doing or not, but the power of Obi-Wan asking, "What have you become?" Obviously paralleling Maul of "Look what you've become." Again, you can pseudo George Lucas that of like, "Oh no, they were big fans of Rebel." Like
that does kind of enhance that line though.
It it connects for me. That's all that matters, whether they did it on purpose or not. But
I'm adding it to the list.
I think it's so poetic that he looks at Anakin the way that Maul looks at him. He's like, "No, I'm not what you see. I'm what I see and what I know I am, and I know what I am because this journey, that this show gives him the journey to help him get to the point of I've risen above because fill in the blank."
What are you gonna rise above today, kids?
To you guys though, are you kind of in the same boat as I am, or did this show mean something different for the character to you?
Do you have any after school special thoughts?
Where did the show touch you?
Tater said all over. I don't know if that was not too faint for anybody to hear. No, I love stories like this. The hero remembering who they are and doing the thing again never doesn't fill me with emotions. It's why I love The Last Jedi. It's why I love Into the Spider-Verse. It is why, for me, a story like Injustice works. Going back to Superman again, because you get to see this hero in such like a diametrically opposed position to what they normally are, where you see a hopeless Spider-Man, you see a joyless Spider-Man, you see a hopeless and without direction Luke Skywalker, you see a tyrannical and jaded Superman, and here you see a broken Obi Wan Kenobi, something Obi-Wan in theory cannot be, because he is indomitable, because he is so powerful from within, not lifting things powerful, but he has a powerful spirit, and he does lift things eventually.
That's the sign of a Jedi.
Exactly. Rocks and shit. But
put that on a t-shirt.
And Arabesh. Roxanne shit. But no, I love seeing Obi-Wan reclaim his Jedi-hood. You know, there's a very much in the same way that Luke sees the failings of the Jedi, Obi-Wan sees his own failings. I think there's a part of him that like just doesn't know what to do, which again is so uncharacteristic of him. And seeing him slowly get his mojo back is beautiful. And seeing the way it's juxtaposed against Anakin and Vader in the way that, you know, now I talked about this a lot with our coverage on Knights of the Nerd Republic, that Vader has moved so far beyond the failings of Anakin Skywalker, except for when Obi-Wan is involved.
Yep.
Like you would never, ever, ever see some of the pig-headed decisions Vader made in this series, except that it's Obi-Wan. If it were any other Jedi, Vader would have played it cool.
Oh,
if it were anyone else, Vader would not have lashed out like that. Another cool through line he has to Kylo Ren, where like everybody likes to talk about Kylo being this like super emotional, out of control, whatever. Look at the Battle of Crate. Kylo is cool as a cucumber until two things happen: the Falcon and then Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Other than those, he is ice cold. He is in the zone. He is kicking ass. He's a fantastic military leader until that, you know, spicy Skywalker trauma comes up.
Delicious. We love
delicious, sweet and savory. Wow. But yeah, no, I love this show. I love seeing Obi-Wan reclaim who he was, and I love that the show does not like this is the best bridging of the gap between Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness. If you look at them as separate characters, that you see an Obi-Wan who is accepting of the galaxy as it is, but also is no longer blaming himself for it, and who it's a beautiful transition, and I love stories like this where you get to see him put it back on, and it makes me happy.
Yeah,
this is the best Obi-Wan story, and I don't think that's debatable at this point. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I don't.
Anybody can be wrong.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but mine is right.
I think what helps is that this is his story for once.
Yes,
he's always been,
despite the fact that he has top billing in the prequels, which I always think is interesting.
Oh,
that
for
it's supposed to be Anakin's story, but Obi-Wan has top billing is so fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you see it play out is, you know, he's very much there and he's heavy where he needs to be, but by and large, it's not his story. And I think that's the biggest swing of this show is it's just, no, we're going to put him front and center.
Yeah.
And give all the character you think he never needed or always needed, however you approach the character, we're going to give it all to you. And so I really enjoy I really enjoy what this show did for his personal story. Got a lovely Mr. Chris Ryan's in the chat.
Of course. Every single day. Love that man.
Everybody just wants to shout Skeletor every now and then.
Yeah. Got a new Skeletor pop figure the other day.
Yes.
Satisfied with my purchase.
Why did we need another one? Because it's Skeletor.
Exactly.
Evelyn
needed something to stand by.
Boop and Michael, anything you want to add? I mean, so for anyone watching, listening at any given point with this, we're obviously this episode is not a one-to-one show review. We're not probably going to do one. We're going to talk about aspects of what transpires here in other future episodes because we want to be more interesting than just every other reviewer. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think
hi, I'm Nerdherder. I don't want to be a film critic
because everybody else has already done it better than us.
I think we do pretty good.
Better than most.
The way we approach Star Wars, I don't think lends itself well to reviews.
No.
I think that's why if you look at any of the ones where we do a one-to-one review,
I actively refuse to rank anything ever.
It's
stupid.
those episodes tend to go exorbitantly long because we
man.
want to distill everything so much. And the show would be so easy to do with Vader, Kenobi, Luke, Leia, Reva, the Inquisitors as a whole, the rebellion that we see. Like, there's so many things we could do complete episodes and deep dives on that it seems counterintuitive to try and condense that down.
Yeah.
Because we don't think on this podcast.
We're just gonna
And
talk about the
so,
Nubby.
yeah. But
Yeah.
so if we're missing
Exactly.
anything, that's your cue to let us know. Hit us up on social media, or if you're watching this on YouTube, the comment section is right there.
Yeah.
Let us know specifics of what you enjoyed and everything. But Boop and Michael, for anything else you wanted to include about what this show did for you, for this character,
Mhm.
anything specific to your journey for that.
I have something to say. I'm gonna piss off some fanboys.
Boop has something to
Go
say.
ahead.
Yay. So I am a fan of Dragon Ball, way over Dragon Ball Z.
Okay.
Because
I'm often
Goku
reminded.
fails a lot. He gets beaten a lot, and then he grows from that and gets better. That is how you make a character interesting. I don't think
Taylor
there's-
off camera just said, especially as a parent, if anyone didn't hear that.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think there's very much that's interesting about Goku and Dragon Ball Z. Because he's winning. That's the entire thing. Vegeta is a much better character.
The other characters wait for Goku to show up so that he can win.
Exactly. They do. That's the entire crux of Dragon Ball Z, is when's Goku gonna show up? I guess we're just gonna wait around and get killed while we wait for him. Shut up. So I love to see a character fail. I love to see him beaten down and at the bottom
Insert
of a
more
chasm.
Green Goblin dialogue here.
Exactly.
See a hero fail, fall, die trying.
Exactly. That is 100% true. Like, that is what you need to make an interesting character and make me care about them in general. So I truly love what we got out of Kenobi for those reasons. Is we see him at the bottom of a chasm, desperately looking for light, and he's got to pull himself out of it, and nobody's going to help him but himself.
He is figuratively and literally buried beneath the rubble of
Exactly. You got to lift
everything
some
before
rocks.
him.
Man, it's like that again. Another meme I saw because of the ending of The Boys this season, where it was this one meme where it was like, subtext is for cowards.
Exactly.
I know writers who use
Lift
subtext,
some
and all of them are cowards.
Yes.
You can't spell subtext without that.
I feel like you could have made your point less controversially, but I completely agree with you.
I have been nothing but consistent.
Look, I know what I'm about, son. I like.
I
Dragon
agree
Ball,
with
Dragon
Boop.
Ball Z,
Vegeta's way
and
better than Goku. Goku.
Thank you.
I'm not
rocks.
disagreeing
Yeah.
on that point.
No,
but
you're just pissed off because I don't like Dragon Ball Z as much as I like Dragon Ball.
no, it's fine. It's just why you don't like Dragon Ball Z, but that's therapy for another
It's a
time.
lot of tournaments.
Both are better
I'm
than
just
GT.
saying.
Look, you're my partner, and I love you.
But
No buts. I am enduring your opinion
I like Captain
right
Ginyu.
now. Everybody loves Captain Ginyu.
We should do a group cosplay
Who doesn't love Super
of the
Sentai?
Ginyu.
Let's
At
do
this
it. I
point-
got dibs on Goldo.
At this point,
Yes, you
the
can
Pickle
do that.
Friends could absolutely do.
We need to
do that.
do the poses and everything.
Does Vegeta
Um,
count for the Ginyu Force? Because I just want to be Vegeta.
You can be Vegeta.
I would fight
You
you,
can
for
kill us all.
Vegeta, but I'd also accept Piccolo.
You are Piccolo.
Yeah.
I'm
Wait,
gonna
who
go kidnap
Piccolo?
my
Are you
worst
saying
enemy's
JD's
child.
Piccolo?
Hmm?
Is it who? Wait, Boop. Who are you saying is Piccolo here?
I would
Okay.
take Piccolo if you're taking Vegeta.
I mean, Scotty's my Goku.
It's
Infinitely less interesting than I am.
Scotty's
everybody
Krillin
likes
at
him.
best.
And he will always win.
No, Scotty's Yamcha. Way
Scotty's-
overconfident.
Scotty is Yamcha.
that joke.
Taylor agrees. She knows I'm right.
Oh, Michael, on anything but Dragon Ball Z, do you have any other opinions?
This is some
So
bullshit.
Dragon
Yeah,
Ball
Saga is
Super.
also pretty great.
No, in all seriousness, I 100% agree with everything that Boop and Jarod said. They've said just about everything I can say very eloquently. I think Obi-Wan has never been more rich and deep as a character than he was in this show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what I have to say about
that's
that.
what's interesting is at any given point, all the content I think I could have thought of Kenobi is all of the potential. Like he represents the best of what the Jedi could be, but he's all of these failings and everything. We're at a point now where we actually can't fit all of the thoughts and content of this character into one episode, not at least responsibly. And so it lends itself to what they've grown into, and by that what they mean to people. Obi-Wan for once means something to me, and much like you said, it took that struggle, it took that turmoil, because unfortunately that's just what's relatable in life.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so having a triumphant story of if Obi-Wan can bounce back from this, if he can rise above, then maybe we all can too. I think that's beautiful. So with that, let's ruin all of our wonderful thoughts by listening to this Obi-Wan
Don't forget to share with
game
audio.
thing. I know what I'm doing.
Do you?
No.
Hey, anybody want to see my dad? A cameo from my dad?
I want to see your dad.
Yes.
You're stuck with it now.
Oh, there we go.
Say
figured it
hello
out.
to the lovely people of Nerdherder, Father. You're not on camera, Dad.
Oh,
Huh? Come here.
put it full screen.
Right here, right in front of me.
I want to see Jared's dad.
That's my dad.
Hi, Jared's dad.
Oh my gosh, what have I done?
Madness.
I've ruined everything. That's what I'm so
You
look.
are
I just don't know what a
sleep-deprived.
dad looks like. So it
Shut up.
I
Sadie,
promise
what
it's
the
normally
shit did you just say?
I
Get a dad.
I promise it's I normally don't perform like this.
I hear there's a few getting milk right
Can't,
now. So.
I can't see anything. Can y'all do y'all see the full screen
Yes.
now?
Yes.
All right.
Now,
Let's
make sure you
so-
let us know if you can hear it. too.
for our lovely listeners at home, as Jarod mentioned, this is the illustrious ending to the Obi-Wan Xbox game circa 1999.
I can't hear anything.
Oh no.
You can't hear it?
No. If I hate to micromanage, I only figured this out myself recently. If you go to the screen share settings, you want share Chrome tab.
Aha. I saw all of these things and I didn't know.
Yes. Chrome tab is the one that you want.
There you
I
go.
had to learn that the hard way several
Got it.
times.
All right.
Let's make sure.
Are we back?
I can
Can y'all
see
see
it.
the can y'all see
Yeah, we
that
can
now?
see, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Oh man. Horny boy.
Man, those polygons are not cut. Oh, he didn't cut him in half.
No, he cut him in half. That's why he grips his tummy. When it's not like 2 pixels, you see him fly apart because of the force push.
Choose the Force. Choose a job. Choose the dark side. Choose the Council. Choose a flubbing big lightsaber. Choose protocol droids, holo projectors, and R2 units. Choose Watto, Tatooine, and Alderaan. Choose fixed interest credit payments to Sebulba. Choose a Corellian freighter that did the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs. Choose a Wookiee. Choose sitting in Jabba's throne room, watching mind-numbing dancers, stuffing green tubers into your mouth. Choose rotting away at the end of it all, disappearing into thin air, nothing more than an embarrassment to the whiny kid you trained on the way to Alderaan. Choose your destiny. Choose the Force. Why would I want to do a thing like that? I chose not to choose the dark side. I chose something else. And the reasons? There are no reasons. Who needs reasons when you've got a lightsaber?
Huh.
So disclaimer, the way it is in the game, it's just at the end of the credits. You just get like the normal text thing that pops up for the subtitles, and it's just a black screen. Like it just happens if you don't skip the credits, and then you just get like, choose the Force, choose a lightsaber. Like,
what is that accent that man was
Right?
doing?
Listen, all right, I have to. All right, for anyone listening pod only to this, because
Yeah,
like
we do have audio
80%
listeners.
of our listeners only listen, don't see. I swear to Glob, we did not do that. Like no one on this episode did that. That
It
is
wasn't me
real.
doing a funny voice like I usually
No.
do.
I know it. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking.
I need a Marky and Rowe
I just
dramatic reading at some point.
I just
Choose
expect
the Force. Choose
I just
the
expect that guy to be
Nihil.
like, respect the pouch, respect it. Like, what was that? That's like Norwegian Beach Boys. Oh my gosh, that's the Obi-Wan we could have had.
That is
It's the Obi-Wan we deserve as a fandom.
exactly, Jarod.
Yeah.
I mean,
We don't
That's
deserve
the
it.
that's the
Obi-Wan
Obi-Wan that racist
Kenobi.
puppets deserve.
That's the Obi-Wan Kenobi Star Wars fans deserve. But luckily, we've gotten so much better. And
Look what
and
we've risen above.
my gosh, thank God for James Arnold Taylor. Thank God they
It's
found
so
that
funny.
man. Because
It's so beautiful. I love it.
I hope that person was cast under a
Yeah.
ghost name.
I hope they have wealth and health and just lots of heroin.
My gosh.
Jesus Christ.
So
That's what train spotting is about.
I
Jarod.
know. It just caught me off guard.
the heroine's always off guard, just to be clear. So I mean, gosh, we can't do much better than that. So
We could.
to turn it over to you, Michael, since Jarod was on more recently, we know what he's about. But for you, where can the people find you and what you got going on that they can support you?
What's your deal?
You can find me on Twitter at Local First Order. I sometimes post Star Wars opinions and Marky on Row impressions and other weird things. You can find me on YouTube, All Remaining Systems. I write Star Wars short stories and post readings of them. I'm working on a new one right now called There Is No Emotion that will be out at some point. And in the more immediate future, I have a Star Wars role-playing game series coming out very soon called Ionized Bastards that I'm working on with some lovely people, some of whom are currently in this stream. And that should be coming probably by the end of the month.
Tell me.
Multiple sources confirm.
Multiple sources can confirm.
But yeah, that's what I got going on right now.
Lovely. Go support the best boy and all of that.
Taylor, what do you have going on?
Putting up with Jarod.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Unfortunately,
helping film his Roosevelt's sponsorship ads.
Yes, yeah. Listen, listen, Steve, I'm right here. You get so many points. I'm a big dude.
I'm convinced.
I'm queer as shit. Like I check so many boxes. Just have me, please.
I'm convinced Jared's space presidency is hinged upon all Star Wars fans getting Roosevelt shirts. Yes, we can. Jarod, what about you and Nerd Academy?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552, and you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. I have a project coming down the pipeline here soon that is nowhere near as fun as Michael's. Alden Diaz from Octo Radio and I did it. Yeah, it's the worst. And I'm going to be kicking
too much leather.
Yes. Fun fact. Taylor's grandmother sent Alden the friend request on Facebook today.
Lovely.
There's something about, and all respect to him, but there's something about Alden and old ladies. I'm just, or older.
He's a cougar hunter.
It's the voice. I'm convinced these people don't know what he really looks like and that he's only 4'2", but like, the voice does it. The voice does it. So,
well, don't you guys worry. I'm gonna knock him down a peg come Tuesday when we have our trivia. I'm gonna avenge you, Michael. Don't you worry. But no, Alden and I have a very special project coming out. It's going to be releasing in both of our podcast feeds. Mine is titled "The Fandom Menace and How We Got Here," which I'll let the rest of you fill in the blanks from there. It's going to be kind of a quick crash course on why the Star Wars fandom specifically is a breeding ground for alt-right infiltration, the alt-right pipeline, the prequel trilogy backlash, and how that was kind of a primer for the current body politic of the Star Wars fandom, and how Gamergate ruined the internet for nerds forever.
#blessed.
So buckle up. It's part 2 especially is a little bit heavier because we talk about Gamergate. But if it's something you can stomach and something you're into, you can expect that this week, actually. So keep your eye on both podcast feeds, and it'll be on the YouTube channel if you prefer to watch it.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what Gamergate is, count yourself lucky.
Well, I was going to say a lot of
ignorance
our
is bliss.
Yes.
Very true. I was going to say a lot of our listeners, a lot of that's probably things you might be ignorant of, but are worth informing yourself on. If you've ever had a toxic or negative interaction as a geek in general, sharing what you love or think and being shut down by people that look a certain way and act a certain way, and you're wondering where the heck does that come from, I think that'll be a study in that.
Yep.
And I don't want to speak for obviously y'all's intention, but knowing who you are, I can assume, that information is power, and understanding what's happening in the discourse and why certain groups and people and ideologies are attracted to certain things helps us to know how to push back against that. And
exactly,
that's why we have hit the nail hard many a time, why we are so adamant on positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Are there things I wish were better about Kenobi? Absolutely. Are there things I wish was better about the original trilogy? Absolutely. Nothing is perfect, but by focusing on the positivity, we actively negate voices of toxicity and negativity. Criticisms are one thing. Most of the people sharing what they think and just asking questions are doing so with ill intention.
Exactly.
Sorry, not sorry. And
no,
so
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And again, it's I don't want to get into it here, but
yeah,
it's the greatest asset that these groups have, especially while they actively infiltrate our fandom and take a story that is so deeply anti-fascist and anti-authoritarian to its core and co-opt it for some of the most disgusting means possible. They thrive on the ability to make us look crazy for calling it out, because you sound like a lunatic when you go, hey, you see that guy complaining about the character in the new Star Wars show? Yeah. If you really break down the rhetoric, it's kind of Nazi shit. You sound crazy. You sound crazy. And it requires being able to go back and look at cultural things and look at, again, like the nature of alt-right recruitment, especially in fandom spaces. And I think it's incredibly important, and I am incredibly grateful to Alden for helping me make a project that I've been trying to make since the very beginning of my quote-unquote career in podcasting and content creating.
Hey,
well,
career, say what you just.
And it's something Alden's good at, is tying the things we love to the pangs of reality. And again, that's why we'll be sharing that when it posts, and we recommend you check it out. It's just because, again, if we joke that ignorance is bliss, but if you understand the things that are going on, you might understand why it's very tone deaf of you to just blatantly criticize a character because of how that character is being touted out for certain ideologies. So many people criticize Star Wars and they don't mean anything by it, but they're unwittingly creating spaces and feeding into the toxicity and negativity. And so
we were talking about that recently when a YouTuber made a very casual joke about the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
But they don't know what people have dealt with.
The people that will weaponize that and
exactly
all of that. So I think all of it lends to us being better fans. And at the end of the day,
doing a better job of keeping those people out of our spaces is the biggest thing. Like we've alluded to it a couple times in this stream. Like this week, a very popular Star Wars creator on TikTok, whose name escapes me. They were just known as like the lore puppet, because it was literally this guy who had like a Sesame Street looking Muppet who would just be like, hi, this is how this stuff worked in Star Wars. Incredibly positive creator. Like was very like, oh, I didn't like the sequels, but hey, they're canon. What can you do about it? Like, these are the things I changed. These are the things I loved. Very positive creator. Someone that I was very like, oh, like this is really cool. I felt super seen by them because I was like, oh, a Legends person who like knee jerk isn't to rip apart the new canon. and then people found his like actual Facebook, the guy, not the puppet, where he's like, oh Jesus, you thought they ruined Star Wars. Wait till we see all these queer superheroes. And it's like, what? How did you slip under the radar like this? And shout out to Sawyer of Sawyerism on TikTok, Instagram. Star Wars, I think, is the name of her podcast. She's a great creator. She's super cool. She was one of the first person who threw up the red flag and was like, woo, no.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do. We need to keep this space safe, because when it's safe, it does not allow for infiltration. And if we disallow infiltration, the kind of culture war stuff that has become quite literally policy within our broke ass United States government can be avoided. Not today, but like this week during the January 6th hearings, there was a Fandom Menace YouTuber shown in a supercut of other people talking about the insurrection alongside Tim Pool. I was another YouTuber and friend of the show, Alex Jones.
Not our show. You keep that evil off my show.
But yeah, I mean, bad Star Wars fans are bad Star Wars fans because they're bad people.
Exactly.
And you can find yourself in ill company if you're not careful.
Exactly.
And so we can, if you want to know more about all that we're talking about, all of that, we'll be sharing it. So obviously follow us as well as the good boys on all the social medias to see when that happens. If you want to learn more, check it out, or just get your own grasp on what's happening in fandom. We love Star Wars. We associate ourselves with people who love Star Wars, and we make what we make for people that love Star Wars, amongst other things. And we want to keep it that way. And so we appreciate everybody that helps us do what we do, including our patrons. Shout out to them, and note that we have some Patreon exclusive merch going out soon. We have 8. 5 are currently claimed because we have 5 patrons. Anybody who signs up, that means we've got 3 spaces to fill. If you want not only the usual perks to being a patron, but also the new and exclusive stuff coming out soon.
Yes, very soon.
Check it out. You get access to special channels in our Discord, which basically means you get to help us decide some content and all of that good stuff. You
talk about Nicolas Cage like a lot.
That happens there too. And there is a link for our Discord in the link tree in the description below. But other than that, you can check us out on all the social medias. And if you liked the show, let people know. Let Boba know, apparently.
He's just having a moment over here.
And we're back next week. We are looking back at Bad Batch. Excited about that. A great little show, a pseudo sequel to the Clone Wars, and something soon to get a second season. So looking forward to analyzing that with the In a Galaxy Far, Far Away boys very soon. So
yes.
But until then, again, check out the description for all the important stuff, and remember to stay scruffy.
Wait a minute. You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.